watching back the film, did you see defensive improvements or anything different defensively against the Yorkers when I recorded Seattle?
Yeah, the second half.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's not anything that's new or it's
Just when everyone thought the Indiana Fever were finally building a stable foundation around their record-breaking core, news broke that completely flipped the NBA offseason on its head. Head coach Stephanie White made it clear that business as usual is officially over in Indianapolis, signaling radical changes that nobody saw coming. The announcement sent immediate shockwaves through the front office, fan base, and sports media worldwide, centered on two of the most talked-about names on the court, Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. Fans were left scrambling for answers, as reports hinted at departures, contract shifts, and tactical realignments that could alter the franchise forever. But to truly understand why this seismic shift is happening right now, you have to look past the surface headlines and examine the high-stakes chess match happening behind closed doors. When Stephanie White took the reins as head coach, she didn't come back to Indiana to simply run back the same blueprint that yielded mixed results during the regular season. Having built a reputation for defensive rigidity, fast-paced tactical discipline, and zero tolerance for inefficiency during her tenure with the Connecticut Sun, White made it evident from day one that every single spot on the roster had to be earned. The honeymoon phase for Indiana's young core vanished the moment she stepped into the facility, bringing an intense mandate that demanded absolute sacrifice from everyone involved. Her strategic philosophy requires players who can hold up under physical stress while seamlessly executing complex half-court sets, a standard that quickly exposed hidden cracks within the existing squad. Sources close to the organization revealed that early team evaluation meetings were far more blunt than anticipated, with White laying out a strict vision that left zero room for sentimentality. And that dynamic set the stage for a dramatic turning point that would leave the entire league speechless. The conversation surrounding Caitlin Clark's future has reached a boiling point after an absolute whirlwind of a rookie campaign that shattered attendance records, viewership numbers, and scoring benchmarks. However, that meteoric rise came at an unprecedented physical and mental cost, as Clark played virtually uninterrupted basketball from her deep collegiate run straight into an intense NBA schedule and global media circus. As rumors swirled regarding massive financial incentives from alternative winter ventures like the unrivaled 3v3 league, questions began mounting about her physical durability and long-term setup in Indiana. Stephanie White's system demands peak physical conditioning and defensive accountability, leading to internal discussions about managing Clark's usage, load, and tactical role in ways that caught many off guard. Speculation grew that Clark might be forced to step away from certain commitments or pivot her focus entirely, triggering wild theories about her immediate future with the franchise. But while the noise around the main superstar was already deafening, another major player dynamic was unfolding right beside her. The situation surrounding Sophie Cunningham and potential incoming free agent targets added fuel to an already volatile narrative across sports media. Known for her fiery demeanor, physical perimeter defense, and uncompromising trash talk, Cunningham represents a style of basketball that commands attention whenever she steps onto the floor. As trade speculation and free agency chatter reached a fever pitch, reports began surfacing that conflicting playstyles and contract expectations were creating serious friction in ongoing roster construction. Stephanie White's system requires flawless spatial discipline and emotional control, raising valid concerns about how high-usage veterans would integrate into an offense built around rapid ball movement. Whispers from inside league circles suggested that negotiations reached an impasse, with hints that certain key pieces might be heading toward the exit door before the next training camp even kicks off. And what emerged next would reveal just how deep these internal tactical disagreements actually ran. Behind closed doors, The clash between past habits and future expectations created a high-pressure environment inside the front office. The previous fast-break, unstructured style that defined portions of last season was systematically picked apart during postseason film reviews, showing massive vulnerabilities on the defensive end. Stephanie White reportedly demanded immediate changes to the lineup composition, prioritizing multi-positional defenders who can hit open shots over flashy individual playmakers. This strategic overhaul caused friction among player reps and agency groups who feared their clients' roles would be severely diminished under the new scheme. With key contracts coming up for renewal and financial flexibility at a premium, hard choices had to be made about who truly fit the championship timeline and who was becoming an expensive mismatch. The tension built up until the coaching staff decided that delaying these structural shifts would only sabotage the upcoming season. Adding even more pressure to the situation is the sudden disruption caused by NBA expansion, with new franchises like the Golden State Valkyries looming over every front office decision. The upcoming expansion draft means teams can only protect a limited number of core players, forcing front offices into making preemptive moves before losing assets for nothing in return. Stephanie White and the Fever leadership knew that waiting around would lead to losing valuable talents without acquiring compensation or freeing up cap space. By addressing potential player departures head-on, the management sought to take control of their financial narrative, paving the way for targeted free agent acquisitions that align precisely with White's tactical board. Yet, taking such a bold stance in the middle of a hyper-focused media landscape carries massive risk if the new roster fails to click right away. The fallout from these announcements has split the fan base right down the middle, with some praising the front office for making ruthless, championship-minded decisions, while others worry that team chemistry is being destroyed before it even gets a chance to flourish. Losing key personalities and altering the dynamic around core stars could easily backfire if the incoming talent fails to deliver under the intense spotlight of Indianapolis. Stephanie White has essentially put her reputation on the line, betting everything on her ability to reshape this squad into a legitimate title contender through pure discipline and structure. As the offseason continues to unfold, every single move, workout video, and press comment will be dissected under a microscope to see if this gamble pays off. Whether this bold roster shakeup leads to a championship trophy or turns into an operational nightmare is a question that will keep the basketball world watching closely as opening night approaches. To fully grasp the magnitude of what is unfolding, one must take a step back and examine how the energy around the Indiana Fever transformed overnight. For years, this franchise was tucked away in the shadows of the league, quietly rebuilding through draft picks, while struggling to maintain consistent relevance on the national stage. Then came the arrival of generational talents, explosive media coverage, sold-out arenas, and an unprecedented wave of scrutiny that turned every single practice session into headline news. With that astronomical surge in visibility came an incredible amount of pressure, not just on the players stepping onto the floor, but on the management tasked with building a championship-caliber product. When Stephanie White agreed to return as head coach, she walked into a completely different organization than the one she had coached years prior. The stakes were higher, the financial investment was exponentially larger, and the margin for error had shrunk to absolute zero. White knew from the moment she signed her contract that managing talent in the modern WNBA is about far more than drawing up plays on a whiteboard during a 20-second timeout. It requires navigating complex locker room personalities, managing high-stakes contract negotiations, and maintaining control over a narrative that constantly threatens to spin out of control online. The decision to shake up the roster was not made on an impulse or driven by personal grievances, but rather calculated over weeks of intense game tape evaluation. Analysts noticed early on that while Indiana's offense possessed incredible scoring bursts, their defensive efficiency rankings were consistently languishing near the bottom of the league. In White's philosophy, you simply cannot win a WNBA championship without a top-tier defensive rating, no matter how many points your primary stars score on any given night. This fundamental disagreement between high-scoring offense and grinding defensive structure became the primary catalyst for the major announcements that followed. As word began filtering out about potential player movements, fans immediately zeroed in on how these tactical shifts would impact Caitlin Clark's role moving forward. Clark's arrival in the league was nothing short of a cultural phenomenon, drawing millions of new viewers and driving merchandise sales to levels never before seen in women's sports. But beneath the highlight reel logo three-pointers and flashy court-length passes laid a punishing reality that few commentators truly addressed. Clark was targeted continuously by opposing defenses who employed aggressive, physical full-court presses designed to wear her down over 40 grueling minutes. By the end of her rookie campaign, the physical strain was visible, prompting deep conversations between her management team and the Fever medical staff about long-term career management and workload reduction. Stephanie White's arrival signaled a clear intent to take the burden off Clark's shoulders, even if it meant restructuring the entire offensive hierarchy and parting ways with players who thrived in an unscripted, fast-break environment. This structural reset inevitably brought players like Sophie Cunningham into the center of trade and free agency rumors across the league landscape. Cunningham's stock has soared over recent seasons due to her fearless approach, toughness, and ability to swing momentum with timely perimeter shooting and defensive grit. However, fitting a high-energy player into a rigid defensive scheme requires absolute alignment between the coaching staff's vision and the player's natural court instincts. Whispers began circulating that negotiations regarding role expectations, starting minutes, and long-term financial commitments hit an unbridgeable divide during preliminary off-season discussions. In a league with a strict salary cap and limited roster spots, keeping every high-profile player satisfied is practically impossible, especially when a new head coach arrives with a zero-tolerance policy for tactical variance. When negotiations stalled, the organization realized that holding onto players who didn't fully fit the new paradigm would only create friction once training camp officially kicked off. Behind the scenes, the front office was forced to navigate a dizzying web of contract mechanics, salary cap space, and upcoming core extensions. General managers across the league know that building around a superstar core requires meticulous planning, years in advance, ensuring that cap space remains open when key players hit restricted and unrestricted free agency. With core pieces like Aaliyah Boston continuing to evolve into dominant front-court anchors, and Kelsey Mitchell facing major career decisions, Indiana simply could not afford to lock themselves into inflexible contracts. Stephanie White made it clear to executive leadership that flexibility was paramount if they wanted to build a sustainable contender capable of outlasting heavyweights like the New York Liberty or Las Vegas Aces. Every decision to part ways with a fan favorite or restructure a contract was driven by a cold, analytical formula aimed at maximizing championship odds over the next 3 to 5 years. What makes this situation even more complex is the unprecedented leverage that modern players possess through off-season leagues, personal brand deals, and multi-platform media presence. The rise of new platforms like Unrivaled has fundamentally altered the power dynamics between WNBA franchises and their top-tier athletes, offering massive payouts and equity stakes that rival traditional overseas contracts. Players no longer have to rely solely on their WNBA salaries, giving them immense freedom to dictate their off-season schedules, recovery periods, and long-term career trajectories. For a rookie superstar who spent over 12 consecutive months playing high-level basketball without a meaningful break, the temptation to prioritize health and alternative revenue streams is higher than ever before. Stephanie White had to account for these external forces when designing her preparation program for next season, knowing that pushing players beyond their physical limits could lead to devastating injuries down the line. The response from rival teams across the WNBA was swift and opportunistic as soon as news of potential roster shifts broke out. Front offices from coast to coast immediately began monitoring the situation in Indianapolis, probing for potential trade scenarios and keeping close tabs on any player who might hit the open market. Competitors recognized that if Indiana experienced early locker room turbulence during this coaching transition, it could open a window of opportunity in the Eastern Conference standings. Trade rumors began flying on social media, linking dynamic wing players and physical post defenders to Indiana as potential replacement pieces. The strategic ripple effect stretched far beyond the Midwest, forcing opposing head coaches to reevaluate their own off-season acquisition strategies in anticipation of a much more physical, defensive-minded Fever squad. Meanwhile, inside the Fever locker room, the emotional weight of these upcoming changes began to settle in among the remaining players. Building chemistry in professional sports is a delicate process, built on shared struggles, road trip bonding, and deep mutual trust developed through intense game situations. When a roster undergoes sudden, drastic changes under an incoming coach, that established chemistry is inevitably thrown into chaos, requiring veterans and newcomers alike to re-establish their roles from scratch. Players who were used to a specific offensive flow suddenly found themselves learning new playbook terminologies, defensive rotation schemes, and conditioning standards during off-season workouts. While some embraced the rigorous standards set by Stephanie White, others struggled with the reality that their minutes and touches on the court might be significantly reduced in the new tactical paradigm. The broader sports media ecosystem capitalized on every single detail, churning out round-the-clock commentary, breakdown videos, and speculative opinion pieces. Debates raged across television networks about whether Stephanie White was moving too fast with her roster overhaul, or whether her firm stance was precisely what the franchise needed to transition from an entertaining young team into a cold-blooded contender. Skeptics pointed out that stripping away familiar court partners from young stars could stunt offensive synergy and lead to frustrating early-season losses. On the other hand, seasoned analysts argued that championship teams are forged through uncomfortable transitions, pointing out that every modern dynasty in women's basketball had to make hard, unpopular decisions on their path to glory. The intense spotlight ensured that every single statement coming out of press conferences was analyzed for hidden clues about the locker room's true mood. As training camp approaches, the focus is slowly shifting from off-season speculation to on-court execution, where theoretical strategies must prove themselves against real competition. Stephanie White's practices are notoriously demanding, featuring high-intensity defensive drills, situational scrimmages, and endless film sessions designed to eliminate mental errors before game day. Players are tested not just on their athletic abilities, but on their capacity to process complex tactical adjustments on the fly, while maintaining high energy levels. For incoming free agents and returning players alike, this intense environment serves as an immediate trial by fire, establishing who possesses the grit and mental fortitude to thrive under White's leadership. There is simply no room for coasting or relying on reputation alone, as every single minute of floor time will be earned through relentless effort on both ends of the hardwood. The narrative surrounding Caitlin Clark and her surrounding cast will inevitably serve as the primary storyline for the entire upcoming WNBA season. Every pick-and-roll execution, defensive rotation, and bench interaction will be scrutinized by fans and critics, eager to see if the bold off-season vision comes to fruition. If Indiana comes out of the gate hot, locking down opponents defensively while maintaining an explosive transition offense, Stephanie White will be hailed as a tactical genius who had the courage to make hard choices when others hesitated. But if the team stumbles early, struggling to find rhythm amidst altered lineup combinations, the pressure on the coaching staff will reach astronomical levels almost overnight. In the high-stakes realm of elite professional basketball, there are no moral victories, and the line between visionary leadership and strategic design